In this daily drop, I'm going to be taking the Canon EOS C70 and taking a look at a couple of custom picture settings and then applying baked-in looks for my production of the daily drop. So let's go. All right, back in the barn, and as teased in yesterday's episode, I have these Calibrite targets here, and they're here for a reference point for you. I do want to just give you a few caveats here and also some information. So I'm set up with the Canon EOS C70 over there, set to an f2.8, an 800 ISO. And in terms of lighting in the space right now, I have a 5600 Kelvin key light. I have a 5600 Kelvin kicker, edge light, and then the camera itself is set to 5600 Kelvin as sort of a baseline here for what I'm doing. I'm not going to change the lighting in terms of output. I'm not going to change the settings on the camera except for the custom picture settings, which are going to obviously change the look and feel of what we have here. And the other piece of information or caveat is that I am not recording internally into the camera. I'm just taking this feed into Ecamm Live. So take it with a grain of salt. But the thing is, it's all coming into Ecamm Live. So whatever differences you're seeing will be consistent with that recording. I'm not doing a mixing and matching of recording internally and then recording externally. And this workflow for me personally gets me to the finish line a lot faster. Now look, in the real world of production, when I'm not doing the daily drop, there's a lot of different ways and a lot of different viewpoints that I have in terms of how to capture an image. There's a lot of purists out there who say it's only raw or it's only log or it's nothing. And I respect that. But in the real world where I live, and I think many of you do, we don't have the luxury of having full crews. We don't have a DIT on set. We don't have, an editor that passes on footage to a colorist, so on and so forth. So the reality is that lots of my productions are captured in log, rarely in raw, but in log at least. And then we are either color grading that in post-production, or we are using a LUT, or we're using a LUT as a starting point. It really just depends on what we're doing. And there are times where I am actually recording a baked-in look in camera, and it is very appropriate for something like the daily drop. So take that as you will. And everybody has a different way of approaching things. I've been doing this stuff for longer than I want to admit, and I have encountered many different types of productions, and I have to approach them in different ways based on what we're doing. So in this case, what we're doing is we're taking a look at some of the settings in the C70. I will be getting the C80 and the C400, which have the same sensor in a few weeks or so. But this, I think, is appropriate to do because I'm going to be using two of these C70s for a lot of the content I capture. Probably be shooting a lot of that in log and then applying something in post-production. But for the daily drop and maybe for some other content, I do want a baked-in look. So what we're looking at right now is the first, or the number one custom picture inside of the C70. And it's basically a BT709 in terms of chroma information, and it is a wide DR in terms of gamma, so a little bit more protection overall in terms of the dynamic range. And you can see what it is. So again, 5600 in the camera, and you can see how it's rendering skin tones. You can see what's happening with the chart over here. And exposure wise, because we're really talking about a 709 image, this right here is exposing somewhere at about 50 on the waveform monitor in terms of luminance levels, and would be kind of right in the middle of a histogram. So that kind of gives you another baseline in terms of what's happening right here. So what I want to do now is I want to dip to black, and I'll go over to the camera, and I'm going to go ahead and change the setting in the camera, and I'll tell you what we have with that. All right, now, is there a change? We're going to find out together because I haven't brought this stuff into the timeline yet to check it out. But what I've done at this point is, as opposed to using the Custom Picture 1, which is really sort of a baked-in 709 look, which is being recorded to camera, and depending on how you route things externally, if you're doing that, or monitoring externally, we are now in the Canon Log 3 wide cinema gamut custom picture, but I'm using, because you can in the camera, I'm using a view assist, essentially LUT or lookup table or look, and it's being applied to the HDMI out of the camera. So internally, I would be recording in log for the camera, and then this is going out with that look or LUT to, in this case, my computer. It could be an external monitor, it could be an external monitor recorder, depending on how you want to do things. I'm using not the BT709 View Assist, but the CMT709, which apparently is supposed to be a little more appropriate for cinema production, I guess. I tripped on that. But yeah, so sometimes when you dig into user manuals, the way things are explained don't make a lot of sense. And I'm sure I'll get to the bottom of what's really happening there. But my guess is what we're getting is something that's a little bit more akin to a wide dynamic range in terms of the view assist. It may look identical to what we had before. It may look a little bit different, and you get to be the judge in terms of that as well. All right, so now I'm going to dip to black, and we're going to go ahead and take a look now at Phantom LUTs and see what that looks like. And I'm going to apply it in this video just to the Canon Log 3 Cinema Gamut custom picture, but I'm going to do something a little bit different in terms of how I set up the camera, so I'll talk you through that in a moment. All right, here we are, and now we're taking a look at a look that has been applied in camera using Phantom LUTs. I have used their products in the past for Sony cameras. I actually had Phantom LUTs that were applicable or could be used with the FX30 and the FX3, and I paid for and downloaded the Phantom LUTs for the C70 and other Canon cameras. And that's what we're taking a look at. Now, normally these LUTs are used as viewing or monitoring LUTs, and then they have 33x for that general purpose and 65x ones for post-production applications. In this case, I'm doing something a little bit different, which is I have created a custom picture inside of the C70, which uses Canon Log 3. That's for obviously the luminance levels for the gamma. I'm using Cinema Gamut for the chrominance capture. So that's the widest chrominance capture you can have with the camera. And then I'm kind of defeating the purpose to a certain degree, but it's the way you can apply LUTs internally and bake them in. And I'm applying the neutral ARRI Phantom LUT to the Canon Log 3 custom picture. You can also apply it to Canon Log 2. Maybe I'll do another video where we compare the two and see if there's any difference. But this should be a little bit different in terms of the look and feel. Everything else is exactly the same. So I've got the custom picture set to Canon Log 3 Cinema Gamut, and the matrix, if you want to know, is set to neutral. There's other ways to set that up inside of the camera. And then I am just baking in this neutral ARRI, look into the footage that you're seeing. And this actually, the way I've set it up right now, if I hit record on the camera, would be the baked in look for what was being recorded. Again, normally I would set up a custom picture with log, and then I would have an external monitor that would be showing me something like the Phantom LUT, and you can buy this pack. It's about $49 US. It doesn't just have the neutral version. There's some other ARRI style looks in there, and then there's also a whole separate pack which has film emulations. It's not really anything other than the LUT. You know, I always say that LUTs are kind of dumb in the sense of it's either garbage in, garbage out, or, you know, good stuff in, good stuff out. You've got to expose your image properly, and there is a learning curve depending on the LUT that you're using. But again, in this case, you know, I'm really not doing anything other than leaving everything the way it is. What I might go back and do is take this particular LUT, bring up a waveform monitor, and make sure I'm exposing it to the way this LUT reacts to things, and then just dial some things in. But I like to do these comparisons first, where I'm kind of looking at what the camera is giving me and then seeing what happens when I apply something that's different. I think I got a little tweaking to do, but there's another episode here where what I'd like to do is show you another LUT pack from somebody else who's done some ARRI style emulations. And again, we're not diving all the way in. We're not going down the whole rabbit hole in terms of everything that could be explored. But hopefully this gives you a little bit of an idea of things. And I'm going to be taking a look at this footage and deciding if this is where I want to go with it, or maybe what we look at tomorrow is going to help us, or help me at least, decide where I'm going with that. Love to hear your comments and your viewpoints on this. You know, the whole point here is there's engagement, that we're sharing information, and that this is a community. Don't forget to, and I'll see you on the next episode of The Daily Drop.